Moondrop DAWN Pro, this one. This is yet another Cirrus Logic CS43131, which seems to be quite popular nowadays, especially this year. I can almost say that every 4 out of 5 recent releases of dongles has been built on Cirrus Logic CS43 series. Okay, so let's just talk about this Moondrop DAWN Pro. It comes in this rounded tin can here with this waifu thing. Okay, and inside, of course, it is pretty much very simple affair of this. You're gonna get this dongle itself, detachable USB-C, which is a very good thing, female here. And you're gonna get also this USB Type-C cable, transparent, which is a standard issue for Moondrop. And also you're gonna get a USB Type-A adapter, which will allow you to connect to the PC. As you can see here, the most interesting or appealing thing about this Moondrop DAWN Pro is in fact the price. Okay, it is, well, or should I say, exactly at 50 US dollar. All right, so that is definitely something which is very attractive price wise. And if you remember, 6 months ago, I have already reviewed this Moondrop Dawn, the first one, priced at 70 US dollar, as you can see here. Okay, and it is still priced at 70 US dollar. So I just don't understand why is it still available when you have something which is like, you know, with more option, price lower. CS43131, okay, dual configuration, dual deck inside. And just like any other CS43131, of course, you can expect this dongle to be capable of playing PCM up to 384 kilohertz and also capable of doing DSD 256. As you can see here, first major improvement over the previous iteration of Dawn is, of course, the inclusion of these two port now. Okay, now it comes also combined 4.4 mm balance together with 3.5 mm single-ended. And the signal to noise ratio is quite impressive actually. Right, looking at it, it is rated at 131 dB for the 4.4 mm balance, which I would say that pretty much top of the class, because another dongle which I know that offer this kind of high signal to noise ratio is Luxury&Precision W2 and W4. Okay, and perhaps W4 a bit more. And surprisingly, the single-ended part is just 123 dB. But let me just remind you this. Anything above 100 dB of signal to noise ratio rating is definitely very silent already, even on the most sensitive IEM that I have in my possession. Something like, you know, over 110 dB of sensitivity and with impedance rating of well under 6 ohm. All right, so no worries there. Unless you are a dolphin or a whale, most likely you would not be able to hear any kind of floor noise if the rating itself is above 100 dB of SNR. Let's just have a look at the best way to use this Moondrop Dawn Pro. You see here, this thing which Moondrop has attached together in this container here. This barcode, if you are using Android phone like this, okay, where's my this phone here? All right, what you can do is that you scan this barcode and it will direct you to a link to allow you to download Moondrop app, which is called Moondrop Link. Now, let me just share you the screen of how to use this Moondrop Link. Okay. First, I'm just going to attach my dongle here, like this, simple affair. Okay, it lights up. And what I'm going to do is just open up this Moondrop Link. Okay, and you would notice there you have two options: select device or USB device control. Select device is in particular meant for Bluetooth device rather than USB device. So you would want to have control over the USB device. Okay, so when I click on this, I click OK for the confirmation. So you'll be presented with this option that you see on screen right now. Okay, filter, gain, and LED. Very simple, very straightforward. Okay, so like most other properly tuned dongle or DAC, all right, filter simply means that the way to adjust the temperament of the sound. It does not behave like an EQ or anything like that, but it does have an impact on the pace and rhythm or should I say more towards the decay state, or the the pairing synergy towards different type of IEM. For example, I always prefer to use non-oversampling filter because I prefer my deck not to alter anything. I want bit perfect playback, especially when attached to something like Hebe music in USB exclusive mode or UAPP bit perfect. Or if you have in particular a partner, an IEM which is bright sounding, I always recommend that you use something like a slow roll off filter. Or if you have a warm sounding partner, you use fast roll off filter. Okay, that's pretty much it. But this is something that you need to try, and just use whichever that you can hear any kind of difference or improvement. So otherwise, I would just always say that use non-oversampling filter. To select between high and low gain for this Moondrop DAWN Pro, you just need to choose between 2 VRMS or 4 VRMS. And it is kind of like very straightforward, rudimentary in fact. So I always set my Moondrop DAWN Pro here at 4 VRMS. Okay, and the last option here, of course, LED control, which you can, of course, like you see here, like turn on, turn off, and turn on again. Okay, and once you have this turn on, it will also reflect the kind of resolution that you are playing. Okay, for DSD, it will exhibit different color, but for PCM, generally, it will always maintain at red. Before I proceed any further, I'd like to clarify about one important thing. And I always mention this. A deck, a dongle, cannot be judged on its own. The only way this thing can make sound if you attach something to it. And that something is something like this Fostech T40 RP MK3, which I have here. The hardest to drive headphone, which I have in my collection right now. And I also have with me a few collection of IEM, which I regularly use. In particular, this Atimotic ER2XR that you see here, which will help me to determine the technical aspect of this dongle. And of course, I also have another magnetic planar in ear monitor, which is Hidis MP145, my current favorite. And on top of that, I use this Moondrop DAWN Pro regularly with my Tanjim Zero, single DD, and also Final Audio A5000. I actually spend a lot more time using Final Audio A5000 on this Moondrop DAWN Pro. Okay, now let's talk about the sound and the performance itself for this Moondrop DAWN Pro. And in order to simplify that, let's just have a look at my notes here. I'm sharing with you on screen right now. Let's talk about the sound tuning itself for this Moondrop DAWN Pro. First and foremost, I would definitely say that this Moondrop DAWN Pro is something which I consider as being neutral sounding. The tuning itself does not exhibit any kind of coloration, any kind of flavoring. So which means that when I subject it to playback any kind of source, I can expect truthful sound as how it was intended when it was recorded. Okay, so there's no boosting of any frequency, which I can tell, at least from my listening with my equipment, which I have shown you earlier. And when it comes to dynamic extension, this thing is quite impressive actually. For something which is priced relatively at 50 US dollar, it is impossible to get this kind of performance, perhaps like over 2 years ago, but now you can get it for 50 US dollar. This Moondrop DAWN Pro definitely offer far-reaching extension, be it from the upper frequency or the lower frequency, depending on how resolving or how extended the partner is. I already mentioned that this Moondrop DAWN Pro is neutral tune. The good thing about it is also natural sounding. So what does it mean? It means that there's a good balance of hi-fi and analog element to the sound itself. It is fairly natural and organic. I do not hear any kind of digital element to the sound itself. So a huge plus there. And let's talk about the mid-range itself. Again, being neutral, it simply means that it does not add any kind of enhancement. So I would not classify this Moondrop DAWN Pro as being warm or cold or bright or anything like that. Just as it is transparent. And it exhibits ample amount of density and also texture to the mid-range itself, depending on how capable the listening partner is. Okay, when it comes to upper frequency, okay, and this is perhaps the most important part. when we talk about upper frequency, you know, there's a tendency for current state of tuning that people would assume that something which is like, you know, sparkly and energetic being highly resolving. So such is the case for this Moondrop DAWN Pro. But while at it, the most important thing is that it does not sound offensive at all with the way it handles upper frequency. It's just being transparent. So which means that if I attach something which is relatively, you know, bright sounding, I would expect a bright sounding output. But the good thing about it is that it has smoothness to the output itself. The decay of that upper frequency is definitely, you know, not offensive at all. And the same can be said for the lower frequency. For example, the bass extension, okay? Especially when listening to this Fostex T40RP MK3, which offer very good bass extension, I am hearing very nice decay when it comes to the lowest section of the bass segment. And let's talk about the technical aspect of it. First, the staging. Okay, the staging is very important to me. And just like any other Cirrus Logic CS43131, which is you know, well tuned, this Moondrop DAWN Pro exhibit wide open sound, especially when I connect it to Hidis MP145 and also Final Audio A5000, two of my favorite because they are natively wide sounding. So they complement each other. I am getting the sort of sound which is open, spacious, and airy. And looking at the rest of the technical aspect, especially resolution, this Moondrop DAWN Pro is very, very resolving. Okay, especially when used with something like this ATOMOS ER2 XR, okay, or even ER4 SR, which is capable of resolving pretty much almost anything. Every element of detail, micro details, I am hearing it. No issue at all. And let's just move on to the power drain, the usage of this Moondrop DAWN Pro. It is definitely very impressive at 13 hours. So just to give you an example, most Cirrus Logic CS43131, which is rated up to 4 VRMS, typically would score at around anywhere between 10 to 12 hours. But this Moondrop DAWN Pro seems to exhibit a bit more of efficiency when it comes to that. 1 hour extra at least from, for example, like some other dongle which I have tested recently. Again, like I mentioned, I have this very hard to drive Fostex T40RP MK3 magnetic planar. When I attach it to this 4.4mm balance port here to my PC in 4 VRMS mode, I only needed 44 out of 100 volume, not even half, and I am already hearing the sort of sound which I would consider as wholesome, rich, and engaging, energetic. I do not feel that it is sounding like being played from a dongle. If I were to close my eye, it would be impossible for me to tell that this is definitely being played from a small device like this. And another good thing about this DAWN Pro is that you see here, this 3.5mm single-ended, despite being slightly less powerful, all right, it needed at around 62 out of 100 in order to achieve a similar level of output, which was achieved by this 4.4mm balance. So, but once the volume has been matched, I am pretty much sure that they are almost like identical sounding. I do not sense that, you know, it is lacking in the terms of, you know, the authority of the sound itself. Perhaps, all right, a bit more on the resolution, all right, because it does sound to me on certain song which require a bit more resolution, like, you know, Diana Kroll, it sounded a bit soft when it attached to this 3.5mm single-ended. But bear in mind, I am, you know, describing this as tested with this very demanding Fostex T40RP MK3. So which means that if I were to use something which is relatively easy to drive, like Final Audio A5000, literally once the volume has been matched, there's no difference between this 3.5 single-ended and this 4.4mm balance. As for synergy factor, being neutral, being natural, being transparent, I can guarantee you that this Moondrop DAWN Pro will synergize with anything. It does not matter whether you have warm sounding partner or even bright sounding partner or even neutral sounding partner, you can expect truthful sound coming out from this Moondrop DAWN Pro. Last but not least, let's just talk about some of the cons which I have observed for this Moondrop DAWN Pro. And I'd like to point out that, you know, I usually use on my phone here, Android phone, Hibi Music app. because I like to use that, USB exclusive mode in order to get the maximum capability of any attached external dongle. And I must say that I'm kind of a bit disappointed that when I attach this Moondrop DAWN Pro to Hebe Music app running in USB exclusive mode, it will exhibit frequent stuttering, which means that, if I put the music in playback and then I switch to another window, like opening my Facebook or anything like that, visibly I can hear, right, audibly, that there's a stuttering in the background. So it's kind of a bit annoying to a point that I have stopped using Hebe Music app whenever I use this Moondrop DAWN Pro. And I do not get that from other dongles like this iBasso DC04 Pro or even iBasso DC03 Pro. So that's definitely worth to mention. But if you are not using Hebe Music app, perhaps you don't have to worry about it, because I can tell you that UAPP in Beat Perfect and also Tidal in USB exclusive mode does not exhibit that kind of problem. So I do not see that problem as well when attached to my PC. This is how it looked like for Moondrop DAWN Pro when it comes to the final rating of Andy Odderwalk Dongle Madness. As you can see there, it is in fact quite impressive with a total score of 86. I have also exhibited there some of the other dongles which I have tested. All of them Cirrus Logic CS43131. So definitely, if you were to compare with the Dawn 4.4 previously, they are pretty much identical in many ways. I would even say that the Dawn 4.4, I would admit that would offer a bit more of note weight and density with the sound itself, because Dawn 4.4 have a bolder approach to the sound itself. But otherwise, for the rest of the details, when it comes to the element of grading, because I do not just judge based on sound, but the overall performance of a dongle, I would just simply say that Dawn Pro is definitely a better unit as compared to Dawn 4.4. And compared with the rest of the other dongle which I have, looking at the general score, about the only other dongle which can actually, you know, be superior than this Moondrop DAWN Pro is just this iBasso DC04 Pro. Now let's just have a look at the Timbre Signature for this Moondrop DAWN Pro. As you can see there on screen, I have listed that, DAWN Pro right in the middle there, somewhere between analog and hi-fi sound. So what it means is that, as I mentioned earlier, there's a good balance of between hi-fi and analog sound that you can expect from this Moondrop DAWN Pro. That is something which I consider as very positive, pretty much on equal term with X-Duo Link 2 Balance and Jack Kelly AP10. About the only one which sounds a bit more analog than this Moondrop DAWN Pro is just this iBasso DC04 Pro, which is my reference. The most analog sounding CS43131 that you can expect from the market nowadays. Okay, and if I were to compare with the previous iteration of Moondrop DAWN, clearly you can see there that I have marked Dawn 4.4 being very hi-fi sounding, lacking the element of analog sound. To some people, depending on your taste and preference, perhaps you would prefer a bit more of hi-fi sound, but I always prefer a bit more of analog element to the sound itself, which means that it is a bit more organic and less digital sounding. All in all, everything considered, I would say that it is very easy to like this Moondrop DAWN Pro, considering that the price is just at 50 US dollar. Let's just take a step back a bit, okay? 3 years ago, it is practically impossible to expect this kind of quality and feature being offered at 50 US dollar, especially considering that this Moondrop DAWN Pro have this balanced 4.4 mm and also this 3.5 mm single-ended. And the most important part is that this independent volume adjustment, 100 step, okay? And this detachable USB Type-C. Perhaps the only cons which I have mentioned earlier, it is more like, definitely not a deal-breaking type of, issue, especially at this price point. And it is more towards a personal preference of me using particular app to use my dongle, to use my music playback. So if you are not using Hebe Music app, definitely you will not have any issue with this Moondrop DAWN Pro. So would I recommend this? This is definitely a no-brainer for me to recommend for anybody who wants great sound, transparent, neutral, powerful dongle at under $50 US.